Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. So, if you've been around my channel for any length of time, you know I'd like to talk about the big picture. And today I'm going to do that. I'm going to pull back and look at the big picture of not only the comic industry, but how the comic industry really is a microcosm of the larger progressive movement. And that's exactly why I look at the comic industry so much. It's because it's this little self-contained community, they like to call it. And the people within this community like to talk. They like to talk about their progressive agenda. They have no bones about talking about it. They put it front and center. And so you know exactly, if you actually listen around to what they have to say, you know exactly what they're trying to do. This is one of the chinks in their armor, by the way, because they believe that they should not listen to anyone on the other side of them. They believe that no one on the other side is going to listen to them either. But no, us over here on this side, we do listen to what they have to say. And all you have to do is listen and put it together, and you see exactly what their agenda is, why it is politically driven, why it is not a creative process, but more a process of propaganda. They simply lay it out for you, as long as you want to take the time to listen to it. And as I said, this is a microcosm for these larger progressive movements and the progressive movement itself. Because again, even if it was a healthy industry, it would still be a small little industry. But it isn't a healthy industry, and it's more of a community, as they call it again. And so it's easy to see the boundaries of it and what they're trying to do. And if you take this little community and you expand it a little bit, you have a picture of the book industry. And if you take it even more and expand it, you have the movie industry. And if you take it even more and expand it again, you have progressivism as a whole. So I want to start by asking the question, why these progressive people, not just within the comic industry, but within all the other industries and progressivism itself as well, why do they seem to gleefully poke people in the eye? You have people saying, look, you take this property that we love, whether it be Star Wars, whether it be Star Trek, Doctor Who, or just comics in general. You take this thing that we love, and you sit right in front of us deliberately, and you tear it to pieces. You do know that we are the majority, and you are alienating us. You are making us upset that you are doing this, and therefore you are losing your entire customer base. Or at the very least, the majority of your customer base, because we are the majority. Why would you be so stupid as to do that? Can they not see that this is what they are doing? And my answer to that question is, yes, they know exactly what they're doing. Yes, they do this deliberately. They want to deliberately poke you in the eye, you being the majority of people. They want to gleefully destroy something you love right within your open view, right in front of your face, in order to make you upset. It is part of what they are trying to do. It's not an accident, nor is it out of stupidity. They do this deliberately. For myself, within the comic industry, you can see many examples of this. Them taking Captain America and turning him into a Nazi. Them taking the X-Men and making them the equivalent of villains. Them taking characters like Tony Stark or Natasha Romanoff and just making them clones of themselves. And that's just within the stories themselves. These comic pros deliberately are trying to push your buttons, are deliberately trying to tick people off. Now the question becomes, why are they deliberately trying to do this? And in order to do that, again, I got to look at the big picture. Because the big picture for progressivism is that they seek power. That's simply what they do. They need power. That's all it boils down to. Again, if you've been around my channel for any length of time, and you've heard me cover some of the articles or podcasts where these people who run the comic industry speak, what it comes down to all the time is power. They mention it over and over again. Now, the reason why progressives focus on power so much is simply because the progressive ideology is that. It's an ideology. It is not something that is dependent upon reality. It is, in effect, an illusion. It is contrary to reality. If you take the principles of progressivism and you apply them to reality itself, they will be destroyed. So the only way that they can keep their progressive ideology both within the minds of people and appearing to have a cohesive whole is through the accumulation of power. They use that power in order to make this illusion appear like it is solid, and therefore use this illusion to then give themselves power. And again, we can see this within the comic industry itself. These comic pros saying, no, look, you people who are crowdfunding comics, you people who think you're part of the industry, you're not part of the industry. No, you're something over there. You don't belong within this community, within this industry, because we are the ones who define what it is. We control all of the power. We control the illusion of what is going on within this industry. And you, if you are declared outside of our ideology, you're declared outside of everything that belongs to this industry. This is an illusion. And this is the same illusion that they are constructing throughout all of the entertainment industry. But the side question is, how do they accumulate this power in order to perpetuate this falsity, in order to perpetuate this lie, in order to perpetuate this illusion? Well, they do so politically. Now, this is something that is historically significant, because about 100 years ago now, we had the First and Second World Wars. And this was really the first time that humanity got an up-close and personal look at what human beings are and how horrible they can be to each other. And it was on a worldwide scale, so everyone could see this. And it was magnified by the technological in two different ways, because you had technology that you could kill people with, and you had technology to get these stories out across the world so people could see them, people could hear them, people could experience them. So everybody was so horrified by this, they came up with the slogan, "Never again." Now, it is a good idea, a laudable idea, that they want to make sure that this kind of horror will never visit itself upon the world again. But when they went about to make this a reality, what did it boil down to? Well, it boiled down to an elimination of conflict. And if you've listened to my last video, you know that conflict is a major part of simply human existence. You cannot get rid of it. If you look at human nature and the fact that, well, we live on a planet with scarcity, you're not going to get rid of conflict. There's simply no way to do so. And even if you could find a way to do so, conflict is not always a bad thing. We need conflict. In order to have reason, you first need to have some kind of conflict. You need to go back to principles, like judgment, where you say, this is this and this is that, and these two things are not the same. They are different. And if you say they are the same, well, that's simply wrong. And yes, that's a conflict. I'm saying you are wrong. There is right and there is wrong. There are dichotomies within reality. There is a right and there is a wrong. There is a virtue and there is a vice. There is good and there is evil. There is reality and there is falsehood. These things are mutually exclusive. They necessitate a conflict when they come into contact, and one and only one will be standing at the end. This is a conflict that is a part of our reality, and it is not bad. It is part of how we exist, and you simply cannot get rid of it. And as I said, it's part of the process of logic and reason itself. One of the fundamental laws of logic is a thing cannot be itself and its opposite at the same time. It simply cannot be. There is a conflict between those two things. But to go back to this horror that presented itself 100 years ago, what the people who were establishing Never Again tried to do was to get rid of all conflict. And in eliminating that idea that any conflict can be good, they were eliminating what was necessary for reason, for logic, for heroism, for all the things that necessarily needed to be there for a stable society. So all they were doing was putting off this massive conflict and building it up until it's going to explode. But to go back to my point and what I was talking about, what do progressives do? When they try to accumulate power, they do so politically. Why? Because doing so now through strict conflict is not acceptable. And to promote that idea of the erasure of conflict itself just feeds right into their ideology, because you can no longer make claims of good and bad, good and evil, just and unjust, this and that, reality and illusion. But they still want to accumulate power, but they can't do so openly, so they have to do so politically. And this is the key. They have to do so politically. Again, if we go back to the comic industry, they make no bones about the fact that they are overtly political. And that's what many of their creators and many of the people running this industry are directly focusing on. They talk over and over again about identity politics and how it must be inserted into every story. But to move on, the question again becomes, if they have to accumulate power in order to support their ideology, and that accumulation of power is through the political, then what exactly do they do with the political in order to ensure that they maintain this power? Well, what they do is they isolate and demoralize. Now, I did an entire video about this about a year ago, so I'll link that in the description. But briefly, I talked about how from the writings of these progressives themselves, from their strategy books, this is exactly what they lay down as their strategy. They need to isolate and demoralize the people who are opposed to them. But here's the thing, the key that I didn't pick up at that time when I made that video. These progressives, not the useful idiots that are running around all over the place, but the people who really are in control, the people who are really reaping the benefits of this accumulation of power, these people not only want to isolate and demoralize people on the other side, they also want to isolate and demoralize the people on their own side. Now, they make it clear, they straight out say that they want to do that to conservatives, to people who are opposed to them. But they have to hide the fact that they also want to isolate and demoralize people on their own side. So, briefly, to the best that I can explain, here is the process whereby this entire thing lays itself out. First of all, these people want to isolate and demoralize the people who are opposed to them. So why again do they poke you in the eye? Why do they purposefully and malevolently sit in front of you and destroy something that you love, especially if you're in the majority? Why do they deliberately do this? Well, they deliberately do this to isolate and demoralize you. But this has a twofold effect. First of all, if they manage to isolate and demoralize you, then you're simply not going to challenge them and their accumulation of power. Therefore, you become neutered and you are no longer a threat to them. But they realize that some people are not going to stand for this. Now, briefly, as an aside, this leads to one of the chinks in the armor of progressivism, and it is the fact that they simply cannot see anything outside of their own perspective. And their own perspective is that people are not rational. So, to borrow a line from Men in Black, they believe that a person can be rational, but they don't believe that people as a whole are rational. But that is directly contrary to the way that human beings used to be looked at, and the human nature used to be looked at for millennia. The simple definition of a man and mankind itself was that man is a rational animal. And that it wasn't part of your will, it wasn't part of your intellect, it was part of nature that you were directed towards rationality, just by virtue of being a person. Now, I want to do an entire video about that in the future, but I'll just leave that there for now. But the point is that progressives don't believe this. They believe that inherently human beings are irrational, and they believe, therefore, that people on their side are inherently irrational, and that the people opposed to them, which are us, are also inherently irrational. And so in looking at everything this way, they believe that in poking you in the eye, you, again, the majority, in poking you in the eye, you will not act in a rational way. You will act emotionally, just like they would act. And they depend upon this. They depend upon the idea that if I'm going to sit in front of you and tear something to pieces gleefully that you love, you're going to get upset. You're going to get angry, and that's exactly what they need. Because, and again, here's another quick aside. The thing is that about progressivism, they deny at every turn that there is an actual human nature. But at the same time, you will be hard-pressed to find another ideology that can use human nature so masterfully as these people do. And it is masterful in a malevolent way. Because they bank upon that human nature. They bank upon the idea that you're going to get upset and angry. And they want this to happen because we are the majority. and they want to take that anger and they want to focus it downwards towards the people on their side, because they know that human nature tells them that there is no better way to make a group cohesive than to present them with an external enemy. And that's exactly what they do. They take all of our anger that we are producing because they are destroying gleefully something that we love in front of us, and they take what we say and say, look, they're attacking you with what they're saying. Therefore, there's your enemy. They are attacking you as a group. Therefore, circle the wagons. Now again, yet another aside. The way that they do this is because they link the idea that because there is no human nature, you as an individual, a progressive individual, you are your actions. You are nothing but your actions. And this eliminates the old idea of loving the sinner but hating the sin. You can't actually have that in progressivism. As it was stated by, I think, Augustine, he said, mankind should have towards each other a perfect hatred, wherein you love the person but hate the vice. And you never love the vice and you never hate the person, but you love the person and hate the vice. Therefore, that which is to be hated will be despised always. But that's saying that your actions are something different than who you are, what you are. That's declaring there is a human nature. But since the progressives declare that there is no such thing as human nature and that you're only made up by your actions, and when people on the other side are saying your actions are wrong, I'm attacking your actions, they're saying, look, you're attacking my actions, you're attacking me. And by the way, I did another video exactly about this, about Marika Tamaki, talking about the fact that human beings are essentially nothing. You're just made up of the play acting that you string together in your life. Again, this is a comic book writer. So the point is, again, to attack you, the majority, by deliberately and openly destroying something that you love, to make you upset, to make you angry, to make you act either in an emotional way or a rational way to attack these ideas that are creating this destruction, which they then focus down like a beam of light through a magnifying glass at their own people in the progressive system. And so this progressive minority takes all of this focused energy as an attack upon them, and it becomes magnified in a very specific way. But before I can get there, first of all, let's look at this progressive ideology and what kind of people and group it produces. Well, it produces miserable people. It produces people that are isolated and alone. It does so by virtue of its own dictates and its own ideological standards, because it's teaching all of these people that there is nothing really objective out there in the universe. Reality doesn't exist. If it does exist, it bends to your will. It bends to your belief and your wishes. That is, again, something contrary to reality itself. It is an illusion, and they're teaching these people from the time they are little children that they live in this illusion world. But reality keeps on smacking these people in the face. And what does it do? It makes these people upset. It makes them angry. It makes them frustrated. This is exactly what the people in control of the progressive ideology want from these people. Now, I'm not talking about, this Illuminati type of organization. I'm talking about a rough system coalition of these people who accumulate power in this way. So those progressives who accumulate power deliberately try to make their own people under them within their movement isolated and demoralized, and so angry, frustrated, and upset. And once again, if we take a step back and we look at the bigger picture, the bigger majority of people, and they are being attacked. They are being deliberately attacked so that they take all of the responses of the majority, again, focus it downward onto this progressive minority who themselves feel attacked, circle the wagons, become more isolated, more upset, more agitated, and then what happens? Well, of course, these people are simply going to explode. They're going to explode in a violent way. There is no other outlet for them. They can't think rationally anymore. They can't solve a problem rationally anymore. So the only outlet left to these progressive people within the progressive movement who are used in this way, the only outlet they have is violence. And again, that's exactly the point. That's exactly what the progressive people who reap the benefits of this collection of power, that's exactly what they want. Why? Because when these people, this progressive minority, gets to that state of pitched fervor, of ready to explode, then they take them and say, look, you know who's causing all this? You know who is actually making you feel this way? You know who's backing you into this corner where you have nothing left but to explode? It's those people over there. It's those conservatives over there. It's those people who are opposed to us and our accumulation of power. It's them. They're the ones who are causing this. And of course, what's the reason why they do that? Because they're taking this progressive minority and they're pointing it like a gun at their enemies and they're pulling the trigger. But of course, all of this is done politically. You see, they can wipe their hands. They can say, look, we got nothing to do with this violence. We in control, we people who are in control, we people who are, say, part of the Democratic Party, they can wash their hands of everything and say, we didn't cause any of this. We're not the ones who are causing this violence. We didn't institute it. We're not promoting this conflict in any way. Conflict is wrong. We're not doing that. It's these people. And because they're backed into a corner, that's what's going on. It's your problem. It's your fault. And again, once again, this is how they politically manipulate the system towards conflict. First of all, to make sure it looks like they're not actually inciting this conflict. And secondly, in order to reap the benefits of collecting power after that conflict has subsided. Because, of course, the people being attacked by this progressive mob are the people who are opposed to the collection of power by this progressive hierarchy. Now, I want to state that during this entire time, I've been talking about the system of the comic book industry. That's where I glean all of this from. Because again, this is a microcosm of the bigger progressive movement. And so while talking about comics, I was also talking about the fact that, yes, these people out in the streets right now, these people looting and rioting and causing destruction and tearing down statues, these people are deliberately trying to provoke you. And yes, I would say, there is no bones about the fact that the people who are accumulating this power, the hierarchy of the progressive system, the people in government, they are directing this. They are facilitating this. That's why you get ridiculous things like, I think it was in Washington, where the politician said, look, you people, you're not going to be allowed to go out to celebrate the 4th of July because there is a threat of this pandemic. But if you want to go march in a Black Lives Matter protest, you go right ahead. When you hear something like that, when you see these statues of our history and things people love being pulled down and destroyed in front of you, you say to yourself, do these people not get it? Do they not understand that the majority of people don't want this and they're making us all upset? Well, yes, they do understand this. They specifically do understand this. This is exactly what they want to do. They want to make you upset. They want to make you oppose their progressive ideology. So again, they can magnify that downwards onto the progressive useful idiots that make up their movement and focus it and use them as a weapon against you. And by the way, useful idiots is the exact term, the specific term for these people. Why? Because idiot denotes the fact that they cannot use their reason. That's simply what an idiot is. He has such a low IQ that he really cannot employ his reason in any substantial way. And so they use these people who cannot employ their reason, these useful idiots, as a weapon. This is a weaponization of this movement in order to attack you, in order for them to accumulate power, in order for them to use this power to make sure that the illusion of their ideology is still sound. Now, I can just hear a few of you saying, that's a pretty grim picture there, RJ. Is there anything that we can do? And I would say, yes, there's plenty that we can do. And I just want to go over 2 of them right now. The really simple thing that all of us can do is cast a ballot. Honestly, you can vote. And if you can't muster the motivation to get out and cast a ballot, well, all of this is for naught. And these progressives are just going to continue to destroy the thing you love willy-nilly. And these coming elections, until the end of the year, it doesn't matter what they are, whether they're something in your community or for the President of the United States, if you have the ability to cast that ballot, these are supremely important because of everything that I just talked about. It's because progressivism is an illusion, and they make that illusion seem real through their accumulation of power. But this is a reciprocal relationship because they gain more power by making sure the illusion looks like it's real. It's a circle, and all that really needs to be done is to break that circle. If that circle is broken, everything will fall. And it can be broken very easily in the following way. The thing is that, again, they make this illusion seem solid through power. And to a great extent, that power is given to them through the legitimacy of these people holding governmental positions. Therefore, if you take away their governmental positions, then their legitimacy to that power is gone. And if their legitimacy to that power is gone, that power diminishes significantly, and therefore they lose the power, the ability to hold that illusion together as if it were real. And once they do that, once it becomes clear to everyone that yes, this is just an illusion, then no one's going to go back to it. No one's ever going to be fooled by it again. And I would like to point out that within this coming election, the power is really in the hands of the people this time. Because it's not about what comes after, it's about what happens in that moment. In that moment, if the progressive politicians lose their momentum, lose their legitimacy, they lose their power, they lose their ability to project that illusion as if it were real, and everything is lost for them. So the power is in your hands. The power truly is in the hands of the people coming up. And the other thing that you can do is simply be heroic in your own life, the way I'm always talking about a hero. Why? Because heroism, as it has been defined in Western civilization for 3,000 years, is a paragon of virtue. It's something very specific. And in order to become a paragon of virtue, first you need those virtues. But in order to get those virtues, first you have to have something called right reason. And right reason is your reason in accord with reality. And stating that you can have right reason is a statement that reality exists in its own independent and objective form. And that statement of an independent, objective reality shines through in all the actions of someone who is being heroic. And quite simply, the thing is that that statement of objective reality as it exists and is flowing through you in these heroic actions, that is the antithesis of an illusion. That is what is needed to destroy this progressive illusion forever. So, if I've given you anything new to think about, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about all this. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.